For hundreds of years, the American culture expected women to stay at home. Before the 20th century, it was almost impossible to find women in the workforce since they were told that in order to support themselves, they did not need a job, they needed a husband. Women were expected to take care of the house and the kids, while the man was working to bring home the money necessary for his family to live. However, things changed when the United States joined World War II. As more and more men were leaving their jobs to go fight the war, women worked as nurses, truck drivers, mechanics, and performed clerical work to free up more men for combat. This sparked the beginning of the feminist movement that developed in the later years. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, there are 74.6 million women in the civilian labor force, making up 47% of the nation's workforce. Although women occupy the labor force at almost the same ratio as men, they still suffer pay discrimination. A research by the Institute for Women's Policy concluded that women make on average 82 cents for every dollar a man makes. One of the reasons for this wage gap is because most Americans still expect women to take care of the kids. So they are often restricted to jobs that guarantee a stable work schedule and that are closer to home so they can quickly respond to any emergency. These restrictions limit the competitions that employers find in the labor market and gives them a higher wage setting power. Companies have shown to have a higher interest hiring women without children and men because they believe that they will request less time off. Also, more than 50% of women work in sales, clerical, and service jobs, which shows that they often have a very hard time situating themselves in male-dominated jobs, and when they do, they often suffer discrimination and a hostile work environment. Fortunately, there are some good news as well. The wage gap has been slowly shrinking in the past decades. In particular, California has been the leader for closing the wage gap, where the average woman pays 89 cents for every man's dollar. This is the highest in the nation. So why has California been so successful? One of the major factors that helped California achieve such outstanding results was the introduction of the Equal Pay Act passed in 2015, which prohibits employers from paying its employees less than employees of the opposite sex for substantially equal work, based on skills, effort, and responsibility. They were also the first to introduce a salary history ban that took effect in the beginning of 2018. It prohibited employers from asking applicants about their current or past salaries or benefits, or relying on such information to decide whether to offer a job or what salary to offer, unless the applicant voluntarily discloses this information. These two laws were a major helping factor since not only they ensured that women will get equal pay for equal work from their employers, even when working in different establishments, but also gave them the opportunity to find new employers and receive an offer based on their skills rather than on their present salary. But why are states like California investing so many resources in order to achieve wage equality? Well, not only closing the wage gap will create a more equal and fair society, but it will also help to reduce poverty, and it will benefit the economy as a whole. Here are some numbers from a study done in California by the Institute for Women's Policy Research. According to the EWPR, closing the gender gap will help more women achieve economic security, cutting the poverty rate of all working females from 7.6 to 3.6%. If women were being paid the same as men, they would earn a total of $55.5 billion more in taxable income every year, which will increase California GDP by 2.1%. In 2016, California had almost 5 million children with working mothers, 12% of which lived under the poverty line. If the gender pay gap was closed, this poverty rate will be cut down to 6.2%, a change that would cause almost 250,000 children to shift above the poverty line. If the gender pay gap was closed, a working mother in California could afford 9 more months of childcare, 1 additional year of tuition and fees, 48 more weeks of food for her and her family, or 5.5 more months of rent. They could also afford more time to invest in themselves and their education, which could further improve the state's economy. Experts believe that despite the efforts being done in the past years, women won't reach pay equality until 2059. But the government is working on identifying and challenging discriminatory pay and employment practices, as well as addressing gender-based occupational segregation. The way to achieve gender wage equality is a long one, but one of the measures that will speed up the process is providing both paid maternal and paternal leave. A great example of this is Iceland, the country with the lowest gender pay gap. Iceland provides 3 months of paid paternity leave, 3 of paid maternity leave, and 3 more to either parent based on their decision. This caused a shift in the way people see the responsibilities of mothers and fathers in families, suggesting that it doesn't necessarily have to be the mother the one giving up work time to take care of the family. Iceland has also made it a criminal offense for employers not to take action on unequal pay, with the same consequences of a health and safety violation, so that companies will work harder in providing equal wages for different genders. The debate about gender pay gap in the United States is far from over, but there are some simple steps that every company can take that could help. Companies can start by changing performance reviews by setting up criteria up front and having a third party monitoring the process. This will help eliminate the unconscious bias that is caused by the fact that women's performance reviews are often more vague than the ones of men, making it hard for employees to understand what the company wants them to improve on, causing women to struggle when trying to understand how they could get promoted. Also, transparency around pay could be a very effective tactic towards closing the gender gap. If companies were more clear about the way they compensate their employees, it will remove salary negotiation off the table, which has caused a disadvantage for women, since research has shown that only 70% of women compared to 57% of men ask for wage negotiations, since they tend to be penalized when they attempt to engage in such practices. Today, more and more states are recognizing the importance of achieving pay equality. Some states like California require companies with more than 100 employees to submit data showing the number of workers, their race, sex, and earnings each year. This data will not be available to the public, but it will be used by the government to understand what the best ways to approach the problem are. In conclusion, there is still a long way to go to reach gender wage equality, but the first step is to recognize that it will benefit everyone. If you notice gender discrimination, speak up, and if you do have the power to set wages, don't let your unconscious bias get in the way. Gender equality should be the next big goal for this country. It's time to lead by example again. It's time for everyone, man and woman, to make America great again.